Hi everyone, this is Tom Sabantery at Premier Trust Advisors. Thanks for joining me on this video. We're going to cover a very important topic as it relates to our personal finances. A lot of the attention is focused on accumulating wealth. Now, it's definitely important that we do that and maximize each dollar that we have as we're accumulating it and ensuring that there aren't a lot of wealth transfers that are getting away from us during our lifetime, so we can maximize what we create. And so we'll cover that in a different video, but this one's really centered around the second piece of our financial life is when do we get to distribute that money? Because in reality, it's not so much how much you accumulate, it's really how much income that's going to be able to generate from you when you're no longer actively working. And so this is really the transition from people at work, us in our careers and businesses, to our money at work. So they generate the maximum amount of income in our lifetime without fear of it running out, as well as being able to pass on a legacy to your beneficiaries or charities or anything that's important to you. So what I want to cover today is a real basic example of what may be happening for a lot of folks. And in terms of saving money or investing money, a large percentage of people are investing and saving using qualified plans. And that could be in the form of an IRA, 401k plan. There's a whole host of different types, but that is one vehicle and it's a pre-tax account. And so if you've done a diligent job and say you were able to maximize this to say $1 million, you've done potentially a really good job on saving throughout those years and hopefully gained some returns. And so the typical advice and conventional wisdom is that we're only able to withdraw 4% from this account. Now, given interest rates and volatility in recent years, this has gone down to lower than 3%. But let's assume 4% for now, that you've accumulated this amount and you're able to withdraw 4%, which equates to $40,000 a year. Now you may not think that's a lot of money out of this account, and you're probably right about that. $1 million doesn't feel as lucrative as you may have thought. But that's the conventional wisdom given the volatility we've seen historically, and this is a safe withdrawal rate that you'll often hear. And then likely from a legacy perspective, you may end up being able to pass on, let's just call it $1 million, assuming you'd be able to earn from that. So that's what the typical approach being in isolation. Obviously, there's potentially other assets in here. So when you look at what happens in our retirement account, say you had that $1 million, and say you're now at 65 years old, and you might live, let's say, to 85. And what we're seeing here is that we're taking a time frame of 1973 when the average return was nearly 13%. And on a net return perspective, 11. And this is obviously pre-tax fees, but this is just what the market has done. So it's a pretty good darn time. And you hear this maybe from other pundits saying, oh, you can get 10% in the market easy. And so obviously it creates, if you don't use any of it, pretty sizable account. So if we start taking 40,000 from this, well, each year, you'll see in this scenario, you'll have even more money at the end than you started. So it's done really well during this time frame. So if you were started retirement in this time frame and only took the 40,000 out, you're probably over a course of time be able to take more out. So given this amount of, say, 11% returns, I suspect that you'd probably want to take more out, maybe $80,000, right? So you're earning 11.3%, so why couldn't you take double the 4% and get 8%? You still should be ahead. So let's do that. Let's take $80,000 a year. And look what happens. During this time frame, you actually run out of money. in about year 19, you run out of money. So you might ask, well, how could that happen? Well, this is this concept of sequence of returns risk. So if you look at the first couple years, you see a big downturn of 15%, downturn of 26% in the subsequent year. And so basically you're taking a loss and making it worse by taking money out of the account. So by the end of the second year, your $1 million account went down to $520,000. So if we take that and look at it from that perspective, that $1 million you took out that was supposed to earn 11.2%, you took 80,000, 8%, 80,000 per year. You end up with zero legacy because it's all gone. You certainly were able to take more out, but now this account is zero and there's nothing passed on. You actually ran out before you passed away. So if you go back to that same scenario, and you say, what if in the years that the market went down, the year after, you would use a non-market related asset to live your life and don't touch this account and let it regrow? So let's see what that looks like. So obviously in first year, you don't know it's negative until the end of the year. So let's say in the second year, you take $80,000 from somewhere else, a non-market account. Now look what happens. Just on that one $80,000 infusion, your legacy jumps up to nearly $700,000 from running out in year 19. So one infusion turned into about $684,000. So this is a non-market asset of $80,000. One. That's pretty good. So what if we continue down that trend and said, okay, well, what if after the second year we also do the same thing? Take it from another non-market asset. Leave our market assets alone to recoup. But what happens? 1.7, almost $1.8 million from the second infusion. $160,000 total from a non-market asset. So look what's happened here. You're able to not only take out double your return, double the withdrawal rate, but you now are able to create a much larger legacy than if you just took it out without another asset. And so what's ended up happening here is that this non-market asset now allows this account to feel like more. So what amount in this first account would you need to have to be able to safely take out 8%? Well, it would have to be 2 million, right? 4% of that equals $80,000. But now, with just $160,000 in a non-market asset, you're able to make this asset feel like $2 million by being able to take out twice as much than the typical safe withdrawal rate. So this is why it's so important to realize that it's not so much what the account values are, it's how your assets are coordinated with one another to deal with the various retirement risks that we're all going to face when we're dealing with volatile sort of markets and unknowns that are coming down the line. So I hope this was helpful to illustrate just a key point around thinking about your assets holistically and seeing how they work well together and how do you sort of position them so that regardless of what's happening, you're still going to win financially. I'm Tom Savantry, Premier Trust Advisors. I hope this was helpful and I look forward to connecting with you soon.